Hey Lego fans, it's almost time for BrickLink Designer Program Series 8. How is it Series 8 already? On June 9th, you're going to be able to pre-order the next batch of sets from BrickLink designed by fellow Lego fans. But to get ready for that, we need to have a look at them. We need to think about which ones we want. We need to make those hard choices. So I'm here with my blocks buddy Daniel to go through all of the different BrickLink Designer Program sets that are coming up in Series 8. Daniel, let's get into it. Let's have a look at Dustmark Keep. So this one is 4,000 pieces at the upper end of what BrickLink Designer Program allows, and it's designed by brickhucker. So Daniel, initial thoughts on this big medieval fortress?
Yes. So first of all, and this is something that I've found somewhat consistent, and it makes sense, right? Because a lot of the people who are designing these, the fans are people our age, right? Who grew up on that steady diet of, classic castle and pirate and all of that. But it's like, this was how we imagined so many of those sets as a kid, right? Like as you look at these, like I think about like the Wolfpack Tower, right? Which arguably, like it's yay big, like it's not that amazing of a set objectively, but as a kid, it just looms so large. And I feel like with these, so many of these sets that we've gotten through the various iterations of BrickLink Designer Program, and this one is the latest, where it's like, this is what we imagined in our minds that it looked like, just kind of taking it to that perfectly fleshed out degree. So here we have this guild hall, very kind of a Prince of Persia vibe to it, right? And it's just magnificent, right? The detailing, the fact that it opens like the classic castles did, a great collection of minifigures, kind of everything you need right in one box. I really love that. One of the details I really enjoyed about this one is the kind of very organic sand that is kind of, it kind of looks like it's been pushed up against the walls of the fortress by wind. Just little details like that are just what makes some of these models just so perfect. Yeah, this one is very, very cool. And I also like, it's kind of a joke at this point, right? Like that the BrickLink Designer Program has to have a castle set each round, right? But and obviously this is the one from this iteration. But again, just like a nice kind of take on the genre of kind of setting it a little bit differently, right? This is meant to be a guild hall for like a bounty hunter, clan. And that's just such a great like launching point for storytelling and play. So again, just one of those models that just really kind of taps into both being a great display piece, but also something that as a kid, oh my gosh, I would have loved playing with something like this.
Yeah, I think that point you make about the sand being pushed up against the side is a really good one, because it kind of is also reflected in the shape of the structure. The fact that it's at all interesting angles and things, it's not remotely square. And then you can also unfold it out to have it displayed in a different way. And in a lot of ways, it makes me think about the recent Ninjago set, the Old Town, in that it's got that really interesting form to it. But then when you look through the gate, there's all these intricate little details and things that draw your eye inside. But then if you don't have the space to display it that way, you've got this way to display it. And as we get more and more and more and more and more Lego sets in our collections, I really value things that have multiple display options so that you can kind of do different things on the shelf with it.
Yeah, and it's just got you mentioned it, Graham, and I think even in one of the images, one of the kind of promotional shots, it is kind of looking up through the gate, and there's just so many fabulous little details in this. You've got the big, again, I don't know my medieval weaponry. I would call it a giant crossbow. I'm sure that's probably not quite the right name for it. But you've got these kind of big defensive weapon, this big crossbow. You've got stuff in the tower. You've got all these lovely little details on the interior in terms of weapons storage and kind of these like little rooms that are like homages to the the master who established the guild. You've got a kitchen. You've got bedrooms. You've got all these lovely little details throughout this build. And I feel like that's also something that just really sets these BrickLink Designer Program sets apart. Because again, you go back to our childhoods, right? Like this level of interior detail was just never present. We had to either imagine it or build it and add it in ourselves. And so for it to all, be there right in this one, set right out of the box is just so cool to have all of these details and such spread throughout.
Yeah, and I think it's a good example of where you could very much get this one set as your only Lego set of the year even, and you'd be terribly satisfied with it. Like you could spend a lot of time with this. We're often, as Lego fans, super greedy, thinking about all these different things we want. But actually, you know, some of these really massive, intricate models like this, as you described, with all of these different aspects to it, the exterior look, the interior, the amount of detail and things. Yeah, this could leave you very fulfilled, very satisfied. And yeah, it's on the list for sure.
I feel like that's the problem whenever we do these, Graham. We're like always like, oh, yeah, got to get that one now too. So, but I mean, yeah, this is definitely an awesome model. Very, very well done. Excited to get this one in person.
So let's move on to Coconut Cape by BallisticBricks. This one is 2,425 pieces. So smaller than the previous one, but still looks like it's going to be quite a happy model on display. It still looks like it's going to have some real presence.
This set reminds me so much. The moment I saw it, it kind of brought to mind Sabre Island, which was a small Imperial Guards blue coat fort. I don't even know if you could really call it a fort. It was like a little tower. I always imagined it as being like, you know, the forward outpost in the harbor to kind of see what kind of ships were coming in. And this kind of gives me that same vibe, right? Clearly with the little rowboat, and it's meant to be on an island, right? So this is something that's going to be out in the harbor, you know, maybe overlooking, you know, kind of where ships sail in. And I just love all of the detailing of it, you know, from the, you know, the base of it, which has got the kind of sloped foundation, which is actually very accurate to these types of forts. A lot of them actually have that kind of construction too, like the little corner, you know, turrets meant to allow people to have some cover while they point, you know, weapons in different directions. But I think my favorite part of this is just the beautiful coloring of the tower mixed with that white and then kind of that cream interior color with the accents. It's just a beautiful, you know, combination of colors, and really just very, again, kind of that classic look for this type of building in this type of setting. So, and again, also, like you mentioned, a little bit smaller, which is actually kind of nice, because that is something, you know, sometimes these BrickLink Designer Program sets all feel so big, and you know, with prices to match. So to get something like this to kind of add into your growing pirate collection for something that's going to be a little small, a little more reasonably priced, that's a really great addition to the lineup.
I mean, small is a relative term, right? But no, I totally take your point there.
In comparison to some of the previous pirate themed sets we've had in BrickLink Designer Program, this one is a little bit small. I stand by it. I stand by it.
It's just funny that we're in a day when 2,500 pieces counts as a smaller set.
Yeah, this is
like
true.
We never would have thought that like 20 years ago. But no, I think what is really interesting about this set, and you touched on it there, is that there's so many different ways to reinterpret old Lego themes. We've seen the way that the Lego group have done it in something like El Dorado Fortress, when they did the modern version of that, when it uses the same color scheme, the same style, but updates it with modern elements, modern techniques, and so on. But the great thing about this set is that it actually takes a completely different approach and reinterprets it as if it was real. As you said, like with the color scheme and things, the style of architecture is all much more authentic historically to how one of these outposts would have been versus the Lego version, where it's all white walls with the occasional yellow bricks thrown in and torches just randomly hanging from different spots that, you know, no one knows how they got there, but somehow.
And these nice big cranes that are, you know, all over the place. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, cranes that look like they're out of modernity back in the
Definitely. Yep.
But yeah, no, just as you say, super beautiful model. And you know, like the palm tree is a good example of, again, just taking something that was done in a very rudimentary way back in the day, but doing it in a really kind of authentic looking way that yeah, you know, the grown-ups who had pirates as a kid, I mean, I'm sure we're not going to be the only ones who are thrilled with this and are going to be ordering it on day one.
Yep. And something else I appreciated about this one especially is, you know, kind of like we keep saying, these harken back to the sets that we loved as kids, is that it's got the open back. You know, so many of these BrickLink Designer Program models kind of do the hinge thing where it becomes like a modular, right, fully enclosed or something like that. And that obviously has its place, and I love that look. It's so clean and nice. But there is something really fun about, oh yeah, you know, this is meant to be a play set. Like, obviously it looks completely gorgeous from the front end, and the interior is great too. But I kind of appreciate that it's like, okay, yeah, like this, you know, the back is open. It's just so classic. in its construction in that way. So that's another thing about this one that I'm looking forward to.
Absolutely. There's new Lego sets coming out all of the time, though, not just from BrickLink Designer Program. So to be the very first to find out when new Lego sets are announced, go over to blocksmag.com. Full URL is on the screen and in the description. And you can find out when new Lego sets are announced and be there first. So, Daniel, turning back to BrickLink Designer Program Series 8, we're looking at the University of Science now. This one is 3,995 parts, so just shy of the maximum. And this one's by KingCreations. So yeah, we've got a very kind of traditional, ornate university style building here.
Yes. Yeah. And again, obviously the thing that immediately stands out most on this one is the just drop dead gorgeous architecture of this. And I also really love the color choices, because I really feel like they complement each other. There's some times where I feel like there have been a couple of BrickLink Designer Program sets, and I'm blanking on the name of it was the beautiful castle from a few rounds ago that was black. I think it was like the Night Lord's Castle or something like that.
Ah, yes, the Vampire Castle.
Vampire Castle, yeah. And same thing, gorgeous architecture, but it kind of got lost a little bit because it was also black. That it was just hard to see unless you were right up on it. So this, completely the opposite, where it's just every bit of it pops. And there's just so many, like the more you look at it, the more angles, from the curve, using a curve to the windows, even though they're rectangular, the circular towers, the beautiful stained glass windows over the main doors. And it is even the detailing on some of those doors where it's just, this really, they're using the ingot pieces to kind of give it that kind of mix of wood and metal, which is just so classic to, those kind of old universities. Just beautiful, beautiful architecture. Like you said, beautiful display piece, whether opened or closed. So very beautiful, beautiful model.
Yeah, again, like Dustmark Keep, I really appreciate the fact that you've got the two different ways to showcase it, because again, it's really hard when you've been into Lego sets for such a long time to say that you fully favor the fully enclosed buildings, because those open backed buildings have that very special nostalgic vibe to them. So the fact that you can have this set displayed that way or have it fully enclosed is very much appreciated. And I really like the fact that it's a very much kind of idealized university. Like it's the campus that you wish you'd been on when you were doing your education and things. And it made me think another great thing about BrickLink Designer Program. So a colleague and I were on our way back from Billund and bumped into someone from the Lego group. And they took the opportunity to request that one of the real world Lego themes had a library in it as one of the sets. And the individual who worked at the Lego group kind of gently suggested that a library might not be top of children's lists when it came to the sets that they're looking for. And I think that is similarly, a university is probably not quite interesting enough as subject matter to be there for children. I couldn't quite imagine it being an icon set unless it was part of the modular street, and then it doesn't feel like it quite fits in there. So the fact that we can get it through BrickLink Designer Program, I think is really cool, because it means that we've got a way to get subject matter that we probably aren't going to get as a traditional Lego set.
Yeah, 100% agree. Yeah, and again, and we've said this on several of them, but just again, this is all you need, right? It's got so many minifigures, so many details. This could easily be, something you just plopped into your city or your layout. I imagine we'll see a lot of this one at convention layouts in the future, just because it's going to look as good as anything that can be built in terms of its details and everything else. And then, of course, got to give a shout out as a lover of the adventurers theme. I love that they are reusing the Dr. Charles Lightning figure from the Natural History Museum and giving him an actual school to be a professor at. Love it.
So the next one we've got to look at is the Brick Railroad Locomotive by TRBricks, and this one uses 1,428 pieces. And it's safe to say that Lego train fans are going to be pretty pleased to add this one to the engine shed.
I think so. So yeah, this one again, so many just shout outs to the kind of the train sets from the early 2000s, late 90s and early 2000s. This one very much gave me Santa Fe Super Chief vibes. Obviously, slightly different colors, of course, but and speaking of the colors, that was one of the things that just blew me away with this model. Is just the way that the colors weave in and out of each other. He's got, on the side of it, that double curve that is just perfect, right? There's no gap, which is a testament partially to just the skill of the builder and also partially to the, number of new parts that the Lego group has released in recent years. But yeah, this is just a, gorgeously detailed train. And as you know, Graham, from having been to many conventions, trains are a very major part of most of them, especially these kind of what I think of as like the upscaled trains, right? Which are a slightly larger scale and size often than the Lego group will usually release on its own. And this definitely just kind of fits right into that category. So the chance for, people who, again, that requires a special level of skill to be able to build, train models at that level of detail, at that scale. So to be able to just get one when, I myself do not have that skill set to be able to build something like this. So just be able to get one and add it to your collection is something I imagine a lot of people will jump on. And of course, it just invites and asks, practically begging for, people to add their own train cars in the same color scheme to build out the full train. So I imagine that this model will inspire a lot of creativity within the fan community.
Yeah, well, the creators designed it so that it's ready to have power-up motors and things to it. And I think, as you touched on there, it's just so elegant to have built it at that scale that it will actually run on Lego track, but also to have compacted it in and have that level of detail. And again, I don't think it's just skill level. It's safe to say when it comes to trains, you need that special passion for the subject matter.
Yes.
To see those small details that if you don't know the ins and outs of these engines, it's so easy to miss. But then once you see it done properly and done to a really impressive standard like this, even if you're not deep into that subsection of the hobby, you can still see it and go, okay, this person knows how to do trains. Like this person
yes.
is at the top of their game when it comes to this. And it really does look fabulous. And I really do love that curve that they've got on the side there.
Yeah,
and the way they've achieved that. And like you say, thank goodness for the parts palette that we've got now that allows us to get this level of detail without resorting to stickers and things too often.
Yes.
So the last set we're looking at today is the hot air balloon by ExeSandbox. And this one is 876 pieces, so the smallest one in this particular round of BrickLink Designer Program, but by far the most colorful.
Hands down. So yeah, and again, this is something that's just so cool. Hot air balloons, obviously, they've appeared right in Lego sets through the years, going all the way back to the Adventurers with those original Johnny Thunder sets. But they've always been, a little bit of an interesting shape, right, for Lego bricks to render. And obviously, the company itself kind of solved that problem by making that specialized part that you put several of them together and it forms a balloon. But here, this is just really amazing brickwork to have gotten that kind of shape where it starts narrow, comes up, gets wider, that kind of classic light bulb shape, if you will. And to have done that with so many colors and for it to be so relatively seamless, that was the thing that just blew my mind when I first saw this. Was there? I mean, yeah, you can see the gaps, but they are tight, which is really impressive. I'm very curious to get my hands on this one to see more of the inside. Right? How did they actually do that in terms of the getting those wedge pieces all together and so tight and close? I'm very curious to see the construction of this one. But yeah, just as you said, colorful and just a beautiful, beautiful little model.
Yeah, I think really something quite fresh, and it's got that lovely balance in that it will be able to fit in with your real world layouts. You could have this hanging from the ceiling above your tabletop town if you so wanted. But equally, if you just have this on a shelf somewhere, it's such a striking, whimsical display piece.
Yeah.
And I think whimsical actually is probably the right word in the sense that it captures a special spirit that I always associate with Lego sets that maybe is more to do with the stuff from our childhoods than some of the stuff today. But yeah, I love really colorful Lego things. And I think, this is something really cool. And suspect this is the one where if you had someone in your life who's not a super hardcore Lego fan, but likes building the occasional set, this is the one that you could get them, and I think they'd be pretty delighted by.
Yeah, and I also appreciate it too, because I like it when there's a range of sizes in the BrickLink Designer Program waves. So it's really nice where, and because obviously you always have the big models, and there's certain, to do a castle right, it needs to be a certain size, right? But to have just kind of this range and its options of some still just equally well executed, equally delightful models, but just on that smaller scale, and then obviously the lower price point to make them a little more affordable. I really like that range. So I'll also appreciate the practical role that this set is filling in this wave.
And now the dreaded question to wrap us up, Daniel. If you had to pick one out of these 5, which one would you be getting on June the 9th?
June the 9th, yes. So again, I think this one, my childhood love of pirates is going to win out overall here. I would be going for the coconut cape set. That's just, again, it's what I imagined in my mind that Sabare Island looked like, and I would happily add that to my very, very large pirate collection. What about you, Graham? If you could only pick one, what would it be?
For the sake of being different, I will opt for the university. I might have to imagine that there's not science going on in my university because, as you know, we work on a magazine together. So I'm more lean towards the social sciences, creative nonsense rather than anything with too many hard facts in it. But no, I really do love this, and I think, as you said, it's going to fit into a real world layout really nicely. But do tell us what everyone else is going to be getting in the comments. June the 9th is when these go on sale at bricklink.com. Things are a lot better now, so you don't have to be there right at the second they go live in order to get them. You've got a little bit of time, but don't delay on it too long, because they're only available for a limited period, and then the pre-orders close, and that's it. Then you just have to wait until they arrive on your doorstep some months later. But whilst you're waiting for BrickLink Designer Program sets to arrive, you need some Lego reading to do. You need to enhance your fandom with the monthly Lego magazine for fans blocks that Daniel and I work on. So go over to blocksmag.com and check out the awesome subscription packages that are available that work out really good value, considering this is absolutely exclusive content that you can't find anywhere online.